Okay, it looks like everybody's here except one of our alternates, and I think we can just get started. There, everybody's here now, I see. Okay, everybody's here. Well, let's get started then. It is 7:02. So, welcome to the Design Review Committee meeting of March 17th, 2021. Normally we would start with the flag salute, but we will wait until we have the flag in front of us again, which I'm hoping will be soon. It looks like we're getting there. So could we do a roll call, please?
Sure. Just a second here. Alternate committee member Tony Chow.
Present.
Alternate committee member Rick Chow.
Present.
Committee member McKay.
Present.
Committee member Lakon. You're muted.
Present.
Committee member Chang.
Present.
Vice Chair Wong.
Present.
And Chair Bowditch.
Present. Okay, great. So I will start with making some comments about the procedures for this evening. Each committee member has received plans and has reviewed every item on the agenda and visited each site. The general order for hearing each case will be as follows. The committee will ask staff any questions they may have. The chair will then ask the applicant or the applicant's representative to comment on the proposal. The hearing will then be open to the public, and the chair will ask for comments for, against, or about the project. In all cases, please come forward and give your name and address. I will kindly ask you to keep your comments limited to 5 minutes. At the conclusion of the public comments, the applicant will have a chance to respond, and no further comments from the public will be accepted. The chair will then ask for comments from each of the committee members. If there is no motion for approval or denial, the DRC has the option of continuing the application to a future meeting. In the event of a denial, it is hoped that the applicant will have heard comments during the public comment period and during deliberations from committee members that will be useful in resubmitting an application. It is important for the property owner to understand that once a project is approved by the DRC, the drawings become legal documents. If any changes are made to the project subsequent to the approval without obtaining proper approval of those changes, then the property owner is in fact breaking the law. There is the risk of having to change the project back to the originally approved design or paying a fine to the City of San Marino equal to the greater of 5% of the project valuation or $2,500, and then resubmitting the changes made to the project to the DRC. It is also important to understand that there is a 15-day appeal period after action has been taken for the applicant or any interested party to request the Planning Commission to review and act on the case. After all of the agenda items have been heard, 2 design review committee members will conduct the open forum. At this time, residents or their representatives may ask committee members about current or future projects relating to their property. Committee members can discuss the design with you, but cannot comment on how they might vote on the project. And so having finished that, we will now begin with the first item on the agenda, which is design review case number DRC 20-69, which is 2405 Huntington Drive. Could we have the staff report, please?
Just a minute. I'm going to be recusing myself from this.
Oh, yes, thank you. Committee members McKay and Lakon, I believe, are recusing themselves for this item, which means that both of our alternate members, Rick Chow and Tony Chow, will both be voting members for this item. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, a quick comment, Marlon and Eva. I just letting you know the agenda. That link doesn't open up anymore, so I don't know if there's other people from the public that might be trying to come in.
The link does. I had the same issue, but I was able to access it from the City of San Marino website link under the design review section. So if you're looking to open the link so you can make comments during this period, you might have luck opening it from there.
Okay. Yeah, I have it open from previously, but just letting you know.
Yeah, if any members of the public or anybody is here who wants to open the agenda, you should be able at least I was able to open it from the City of San Marino website. And when you go to the website, you go to, I think, agendas and meetings, and then you find the design review section and click on agenda. If anybody has any questions about how to access that, they can let us know. Maybe now would be a good time so we can help you access that in order to make better comment. Or more
Yeah, throughout the meeting, if someone would like to send me a chat as well, if they're having access or having trouble accessing the agenda, that would be fine.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cervantes. Okay, so with now that we have the members who have recused themselves and that's clarified, could we start with the staff report, please?
Sure. Design review case number DRC 20-69 is a proposal to install a individual channel letter commercial sign at 2405 Huntington Drive for San Marino Security Systems. This came before you at the February 3rd, 2021 meeting. The applicant presented a sign that was different than what's being presented today. It measured 42 square feet at the time and was made up of an aluminum face and a matte black powder coated texture. The committee at that meeting expressed concerns over the sign, including the size, illumination, and compatibility of the design with the building and the neighborhood. This new proposal has, as previously mentioned, the individual channel letters, and it measures a total of 39.25 square feet. That's a correction from the staff report in the plans, which list 36 square feet. Based on the dimensions provided on the plans, the size of the sign is actually 39.25. The sign will be the letters on the sign will be individually backlit during nighttime hours by way of LED modules. Staff finds this new proposal to be compatible with the building and the neighborhood and recommends the added condition that the sign be turned off no later than 10 p.m. That concludes staff's presentation.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from committee members to ask to staff?
I have one for Mr. Cervantes. Could you please clarify the total facade area, which is the denominator of the calculation? Is it one particular section of the facade where the signage is proposed to be located, or it is the entire Huntington Drive facing facade?
So the facade is calculated from the top of the parapet wall, shown on the elevation drawing, to the bottom of the building, and across the entire width of the building. That represents the entire facade of the business,
inclusive of any windows and doors, or excluding?
Right. It's the entire facade. There's no areas excluded for windows or doors.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, other questions for staff?
I have one more question for staff, if I may.
Yes.
This proposed footage, will that pretty much use up the entire allowable signage for the entire building, or there will be future signage possible?
From the last meeting, the applicant stated that there would be no additional signage. However, they are not using the maximum allowed signage based on the facade. If you look on the plans, it shows the maximum allowed is 54.5 square feet, which is based on the 4% that's allowed in the code. 39.25 is about 3% of the maximum, or 3% of the total facade area.
So they still have some allowance per se in the event there may be a future tenant or future signage proposal, except that small percentage left will be a challenge to make it compatible with this sign.
Right. It would essentially allow for about 15 square foot sign, which is fairly small.
Right. It may not work with the proposed signage. That's maybe we can talk to the applicant about their intention, because if they use the remaining 15 square feet balance to do another sign, that it may look out of place. may not be in the same proportion as the proposed sign. So maybe we can talk to them on that, and that's fine. I just want to know that percentage. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, so I believe that the applicant or applicant's representatives are present. And are they available to, or would they like to make any comment or discuss their revised proposals?
Sure, yes, I'd love to make a comment. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Kylie Rocky Fisher, and I will be discussing our sign today and hopefully answering any of your questions. I do want to start off by saying that we did sincerely review each of the committee members' comments and concerns from the previous meeting and really wanted to make everyone aware that each of their voices were heard. We do understand that the committee members have a desire for a particular sign when it comes to our sign and wanted us to create something that worked more aesthetically with the building. Originally, we were focused on finding a sign that suited other signs in our legal neighborhood, and Committee Chair Joyce Battage stressed that while fitting in with a local neighborhood was good, it was more important to design a sign that fit with our Mediterranean modern style building. These characteristics of the Mediterranean modern style building include the black metal doors and windows, the rich wood, but an overall simple and neutral palette with a bit of the Spanish flair you'll see in the red tile roofing. We sincerely feel that we have designed a sign that fits in beautifully with the building. Committee member Raymond Chang did express his desire to see channel lettering in a sign, and as you can see, we really took that into consideration when we redesigned the sign. We do like the look, or in fact love the look of the channel lettering sign, but we were restricted on how it would work with the electrical plan that's currently set for the space. So this was the best compromise that we could come up with. The sign does embody that channel lettering look, while that 6-inch bar in the center pulls the power to the sign. And a warm amber backlit glow will illuminate the area, which seamlessly blends in with the current building lighting. Per the city code, we can't exceed the 4% of the building facade. And I think there may need to be a little bit of clarification on it. So the sign is 39.25 square feet. There was a typo on the original drawing, which is technically only 2.8% of the entire, of the unit's facade, I should say. So that's the unit that San Marino Security itself occupies on that facade. But it's actually only 1.2% of the entire building facade. So the sign that you'll see there is, when you look at the building as a whole, is technically only 1.2% of that allotted 4%. The 54.5 square feet is actually the allotted 4% in our unit only, not including the whole building. So I hope that kind of clarifies a little bit. So yes, there, I guess, would be room for future signage if needed. That is not our plan or our intention at the moment. We do plan to occupy the entire building at some point down the line. So we feel like just the one sign in the center is sufficient enough for our business and all we're asking for now and probably in the future. We don't intend to ask for more necessarily. We did make the small signer from the previous one, giving more room on the top and bottom of the balcony, which was Committee Member Chang's request. We do feel like getting rid of that box look from the original sign dramatically changes the aesthetic, making the new sign feel light, simple, and blends in with the building. In addition, the black metal lettering fits in perfectly with the 25 black metal frame doors and windows on the facade, as well as the wrought ironwork on the trellises. We truly feel we've designed a sign that suits the committee's desires and have developed something that fits in with the building itself as well as the surrounding neighborhood. We're very happy with the new sign design, and we hope the committee feels the same way. We feel the sign is stylistically appropriate and feel it's an elegant addition to the Huntington Drive stretch. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions from committee members for the applicant or applicant's representative? I understood that there were some questions from the previous discussions that we were having with staff. So,
Well, I just say that the applicant basically answered most of the concerns you may have, and I want to thank them for listening to our comments. And so I think they have done what they would like to do, and it's going to be good for the neighbors. So I don't have any further questions.
okay, and any other questions?
I have one.
Yes.
Hi. When I look through the San Marino security system website, I do see the typical logo of the corporation is like I'll say rectangular diamond shape somewhat, or hexagonal. That is with a big San Marino in the middle, and then security system a little bit way smaller in the bottom. But in any other location, it is fairly even-sized letters for San Marino security system. So in this application, I see San Marino's, the characters are bigger than the security system. So may I ask, is it a new logo design, or it is something you guys want to try, or is there a particular reason why the letters are not in even size?
Particularly, it's the design of the sign because of the lettering and the amount of letters in security systems and how that's spaced out. It's kind of, we're hindered on the size of that because if we go bigger on the security systems, it's not going to make the San Marino proportional. But a lot of our sign on our website, maybe not so much, but most of our other things, like for example, our yard sign, the San Marino is very, very bold, and security systems is smaller on the sign, and you'll see that in our yard sign. And I know you had mentioned last time about a logo and why we weren't necessarily putting our logo. Well, our logo is our yard sign. You'll see a lot of security companies don't necessarily have a typical logo that you would see in a company. That's just not really the standard in the alarm industry to have some like tiger as a logo or something like that, for example. It's really our sign and our yard sign. And we could put it on our building. We just didn't necessarily feel that it was necessary to add our yard sign logo onto the building. We thought it was a lot cleaner look and more simplistic look to have simply our name in our font, because that is our logo in a sense.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, are there any other questions for the applicants? Okay, seeing none, we will now move on to public comment. Are there any members of the public here to speak for, against, or about the project? I don't believe that I see anyone indicating. Mr. Cervantes, do we have anyone indicating that they would like to give comment?
No one on my end, no.
I don't see. Okay, so I will now close the public hearing, and we will now move on to committee member discussion. Committee member Tony Chow.
No, I appreciate the applicant's flexibility to work with us on this, or kind of listen to the feedback. I think this looks a lot better without the box around. I know that kind of runway's just part of the sign, but overall, no, I think you've done the building good justice, and it's something that I could support. I did want to mention, or I don't know if we asked the applicant before about the hours, if they would be okay with the hours that was in the staff recommendation.
We didn't actually ask them specifically about that, but we can certainly address that now that we're in the committee member discussion time. It is appropriate to discuss any restrictions and hours that would be suggested by committee members, and that can be, we can bring that to the applicant in our motion. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I would support staff's recommendation on that as well. I just didn't know if we had a chance to ask the applicants on that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily something we would have to ask, but we can discuss it, and it's common to we can come back to the applicant if that's a concern. We'll move on. I'm sorry, is that the end of your comment?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. Committee member Rick Chow.
Yes, thank you. I think overall, I'm in agreement with staff's findings. So I think, again, I think the applicants certainly took all the comments and improved on it. I think this is definitely a much better version than the first one. It's a little bit less, even that it's the reduction of the square footage is really not that much. But I think because of the design, it made a softer landing here. However, I do think that committee member Chen asked some great questions in regards to, like, okay, what about future signs if it were to go on to the buildings? I kept referring back to when the building proposal was approved, I think it was 2014. You can see three kind of placeholders, three signs there. I know those are, nothing final, but I do like that look, that balance. So again, I kind of question, I'm curious to see if other committee members share the concern that, because this is taking up some real estate already, and what happens if there in the future there's some changes that all of a sudden another sign needs to go up, it's just not going to be compatible. So that's basically my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Wang.
Thank you. I do appreciate the applicant's sincerity and taking into consideration of the many of our concerns from the last meeting. With regard to potential additional signage for the property, I would worry less because when that day, if it does come, then it would be presented to either the Planning Commission or the committee or the Design Review Committee for overall consideration again. So either it is going to be unbalanced, which would probably unlikely to be approved, or the existing proposed one has to be downsized to make it kind of more balanced. So I would prefer to think about that when that day comes. However, I do realize that the reduction in size is really a gesture. It is not really material, but I'm not fixating on the percentage per se. My yardstick more is about the area that the signage is put on, which is above the arch door or next to the arch door under the balcony. And that piece of space with the proposed signage size is actually quite large. I'm trying to harmonize that with the neighboring signages from the Chinese club and the like. Of course, they are awning size, but still the letter size are quite different. I also referred to the Planning Commission's approval back many years ago, and the size of each signage is a lot smaller, of course, because there are three involved. But that did give a lot more subdued and subtle feel of the property. Ideally, I would like to see a size of the proposed signage to be smaller than what it is now. It definitely could be bigger than what was proposed and approved in the Planning Commission back then, because now it's one sign versus three. So I'm just curious and would love to have the opportunity to give that a try again. But I recall the applicant was in agreement in limiting the operating hours of the lighted signs, and I think the staff condition of 10 p.m. is a very good one, and I can support that. But with regard to the size of the proposed one, I have some reservations still. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee Member Cheng.
Yeah, thank you. currently this proposal looks proportionally correct with that one sign entire building. It looks about right, and I appreciate the applicant went back and come up with the at least the correct lighting and the correct signage so that it looks good at this point. I asked a question earlier about if there were whatever the percentage left per city staff answer. If they were to use the balance for another applicant, then it would not be a balance signage for the entire building. So I think at this point we are looking at one sign, one building, one tenant, owner occupied, and with that said, I think it will be fine. I can approve that the way it is because it looks very visible during the day and it's workable during evening hours until 10 o'clock. And I think it will serve the applicant's desire. Again, we don't need to go past 10 o'clock because that becomes an advertising. And I also appreciate the fact that they don't put their quote unquote yard signage on the building. That become a really advertising piece, and that would take away from the building. Currently, if you look at that building and look at that signage, it looks very professional and it looks very charming, and I think it will work with that halo effect at night. So at this point in time, with staff recommendation and with that proportion, I can approve it the way it's now.
Thank you. So as far as my own comments go, I think that it wasn't specifically said by my fellow committee members, but I believe that it was implied that the material is just really a huge improvement. I think this black metal sign is very, very appropriate for this style of building, and it is, as you mentioned, as the applicant mentioned, it is much more appropriate it's much more compatible with itself. So I'm really happy that you, with the material that you chose. I'm also very pleased with the backlighting. I believe that this really gives it a very elegant look, and it's just really a very big improvement. I'm going to preface all of that I'm very, very supportive of the material and the backlighting and the compatibility with itself that the material and the backlighting give the building. I'm going to agree with two of my other fellow committee members, Committee Member Chow and Vice Chair Wong, that I share their same concerns with the size is still very large, and it looks, it was reduced, but really kind of only a token amount, as one of my committee members said, and it's still too large really for that. And I think it's naive to think that it is going to be the only sign on the building. It's a huge building. It's a very large building, and I can't imagine that other tenants aren't going to exist in the building. There's other buildings behind the building, so I just think it's unrealistic, and I don't, think that it's going to be an awkward situation to ask another applicant down the road, whether that be next month or next year or 5 years from now, to say, well, your sign is smaller than, is the same size as the other sign, but 5 years ago we told them that their sign is okay the way it is, but not if there's any other signs, so now you have to change all the signs. I don't think that this creates a good precedent that this sign today is okay, but we're going to ask you to change it later. And how is that going to work for you either, to have to change your sign to a smaller size? Because as Committee Member Chang said, if this sign alone may not appear very large, but it seems very unlikely that there's not going to be another occupant of this building who's going to want to sign up. given the size of the big building and given the fact that I believe that there are several different offices separate to each other, and it's designed to have different occupants, as was submitted in 2014. So I just think really like you're very much on the right track. I believe that if you reduce the size and just as committee members Chow and Vice Chair Wong said, I keep referring to the 2014 approval that was given by Planning Commission, and that approval was really for some very subtle, very signs that were very similar to each other, and that gave the building a lot of cohesiveness. And so I just think that you need a little fine tuning, and that maybe you need to just imagine 3 other signs like it and how they would look next to it, and reduce the size more than just the token amount that you did. And I think I'm really hopeful that the next time it will be something that I personally could approve next time. But you're on the right track. Thank you for listening to us. If you keep listening to us, I think you're going to get what you want. And I agree. I think that 10 p.m. is very generous, but I am not going to argue with that. I think as long as there is a clear condition that it be limited to be turned off at 10 a.m. and certainly not a minute later, I'm okay with that. So with that, I would like to ask for a motion.
Chair, if I may, can I make a comment?
Yes, we can keep discussing this. I'm sorry, I usually try to ask that the discussion keep going. Sorry about that.
Sure, sorry about that. It so happened I was on the Planning Commission at the time when we approved the building. Mm-hmm. And the fact that at that time we had basically 3 storefronts, and there was a comprehensive sign program that I think the architect at that time felt that it makes sense to make it proportionally correct by having the storefront and individual businesses for signage. So it was basically approved that way, of course, without understanding how much space that San Marino Security is going to take the building. Today, I believe they occupy all of them. I think there's no tenant there. There may be some empty space, but I heard, if I didn't hear incorrectly, that they may take the entire building. I think what's in front of us is an application that I am the single tenant. I have the entire building. They own the building, and we want a signage for our business, which I understand. If they were one day, they're ready to retire, and that's it, and they convert this building back into 3 different businesses. If you look at the condition of approval, then actually a lot of condition applies that if the security business is no longer there, including the second floor occupancy, special occupancy, that have to convert back to commercial use, and then the signage will probably have to be revisited at that time. If they're going to occupy 3 separate units, then this size that we're looking at now need to be reduced with 2 other signage to work within the same amount of footage, similar to the one we approved in the beginning. I think that would be appropriate.
So are you suggesting that we could make a condition? I mean, and I also want to ask staff this, can we make a condition that if there will be, we would approve this on the condition that it be the only sign on the building, and that if there is another sign that will come before any of the bodies, whether that be DRC or Planning Commission, that the condition be that both of those signs will have, that the sign that we would conditionally approve tonight would be on the condition that it be reduced in the future? I don't know if that is really realistic.
I think we can ask staff. Maybe staff can answer that. Maren, you want to give it a try? Because I mean, it is. I think I'm looking at one signage at this time for the entire building and the entire business. Now, if we were to go back to the original concept, having 1/3 of the signage for this entire building, that may look out of place also. It may not look that good either. if you really look at a third of one sign for the entire building, and that's my personal judgment. So, Marlon, can you give it and comment on that? If we were to condition it that this is the only signage at this point in time, if they have other business coming in, they have to go back and reconsider the entire application.
Yeah, that's a difficult one only because I know once this sign gets finalized and approved, it's something that's difficult to enforce. Say if someone comes in a year or two from now, Eva, myself, or one of the other current planners on staff may remember that condition exists. However, in 5-10 years' time, it'll be hard for current staff at that point in time to enforce a condition that was made 10 years in the past. So that I think may be difficult to enforce. Ultimately, it's I think up to the applicant to state whether that's something they're amenable to or not. But again, I just want to give the caveat that going forward, that would be something that would be difficult to enforce. However, there will, unless the code changes, there will always be the requirement for anyone applying for a sign to come back before the design review committee. And at that time, of course, existing signage will be presented along with any new proposed sign. And at that point, the current members or future members on the committee can state, well, this doesn't look proportionate to the existing sign, and we don't feel that we can approve something like this. So I think that would be the mechanism for regulating that, as opposed to a condition.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, it just seems, this is a building that's going to be there for a long time. It's going to be there perhaps much longer than one business will be there, even if that business, and it is certainly designed to be a building with several occupants. It was intended to be a building with several occupants, as far as I understand. And the fact that it is only a few years old and still has, I don't know, I guess only one occupant that is in the front or that wants a sign at this moment, that could change next month. And I would expect it to change soon. It is a new building, which I'm sure that they are, I'm not sure. I believe that there is so much space and there's so much frontage, and it was designed with several occupants in mind, that it would be kind of I feel like we're walking into a problem, knowing that there's going to be something that's going to come before us, and then we're going to be in the situation where, as Mr. Cervantes pointed out, that we have to rely on people's memories, we have to rely on someone looking it up, we have to rely on the applicant kind of owning up to that kind of thing of like, okay, well, we have to change both signs now or all signs, and it sounds difficult to enforce, and it sounds like we're sort of walking into thing. And I wouldn't say that any kind of uniformity in terms of the size or the style is a problem for the building. I think it would complement this particular building. But anyway, I am open to. Are there any other committee members who would like to comment on this before we move on to to motions?
Yeah, I would like to just.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. My follow-up comment, because I definitely agree partially with pretty much all the comments so far, and I see the option that perhaps we can make it into a condition if the applicant also agree or is willing to go down that route. But I also hear that this condition may become problematic because it will not be looked up years from now. So I guess I'm wondering, like, when we make a condition in the future, isn't that documented black and white? And when another signage comes up proposal, that'll be easily looked up. So my hope is that I think that ideally for me is that we can make this into a condition. And because I also have the concern, as I stated earlier, that you look at the original design, that the three signs, it's just a lot more proportionally, I think just more compatible. So I guess the bottom line is that if committee members and the applicant, we can make this into a condition, I think I can support that. If not, I also definitely hear Chair Batnage's concerns that, if that just gets too complicated, then we should come back and ask to have this sign revisited and reduce in size. Thanks.
Yeah, and I also want to say that I believe there already is more than one tenant in the building. Or am I imagining this? I know we're in committee member discussion, but maybe Ms. Choi or Mr. Cervantes can help to answer this, or we can ask. I guess we could go back to the applicant and ask. But are you the only tenant in the building, or is this the only tenant in the building on the property currently?
I don't know if I can unmute stuff. No, we are not the only tenant in the building. We do have other tenants that are occupying, but they do not want signage. And actually, the tenant in the back has signage. There's signage specifically for the back tenant. They will not have access to the front sign really ever because they don't occupy any of the front facade of the building.
So how many tenants are on the property right now,
including us? There's a total of 3.
Okay, so this kind of proves my point that the idea that maybe you'll have another tenant and that back tenant will negotiate signage on the front or demand that as a condition of moving in, or it just seems with a building that is designed to have several tenants, the likelihood of only having one sign on the front of this building, it does not seem reasonable to me. And I feel like we're walking into a problem. Why wouldn't we get this right from the beginning? Why wouldn't we look at 2014 Planning Commission approval that has, consistency of, signs in the facade that I've heard from at least a few committee members that we all think that looks compatible and attractive, that they're all, similar size and that there's a uniformity of that looks attractive on this particular building. I guess what I'm saying is I've heard 3 of us say that this sign is too big if there are other signs that are going to be on this building. The fact that there are already 3 tenants in this building tells me, and the fact that this building is designed to have several tenants and was submitted as such would tell me that there's going to be more signs coming up as separate applications. But, those are my comments, and I don't think I need to belabor that anymore. And with that, is there any other committee member discussion before we move on to motions? Okay, so with that, I will ask for a motion.
I'll try a motion. I motion to continue. Sorry, I should have had the case number.
It's 20-69.
Okay, I motion to continue DRC case number 20-69 to the next to the next meeting. So yeah, that's
okay. I'll second that. Could we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Alternate committee member Tony Chow.
Nope.
Alternate committee member Rick Chow.
Yes.
Committee member Cheng.
No.
Vice Chair Wong.
Yes.
And Chair Batnage.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We now move on to design review case number DRC 19-83, 1464 Rubio Drive. Could we have the staff report, please?
Yes, Chair. Thank you for introducing the item. This item is returning back to the committee since the first hearing on January 6th. This is a second-story addition to an existing two-story home. At the January 6th meeting, the committee continued the items because of incompatibility with the existing building, the style of the home specifically in terms of the roof design, and also the placement of the windows were out of scale and not balanced with the existing home. The property owner has since made changes to the roof design, and it is now a simple hip roof, which is consistent with the style of the colonial revival home. Staff is able to find that the current design is compatible with the existing home. The roof is well integrated, and also the windows, the new windows are appropriately placed in terms of size and location with the existing home on the west elevation. So with that, staff is recommending that the committee approve the project as submitted to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the staff from committee members? Yes, please. Committee Member McKay.
Thank you. I would ask staff if it's your understanding that the proposed windows are going to be exact in style, consistent with the existing windows on the outside of the home.
Correct.
Design.
Yes. So the proposed new window will be single hung windows. Actually, I'm sorry, they will be double, single hung window, single hung windows, which are consistent with the existing windows on the home. Yes.
Including the sill at the bottom.
Correct.
Thank you.
No, actually, I'm sorry, committee member. Currently, the homes, all the windows do not have window sills. And that is, the window sills are also not shown on the elevation drawing either. So the new windows will not have sill.
So they will not be consistent with the other windows on the home.
The existing windows do not have sill.
Maybe I have the wrong terminology. Maybe it's a semantics issue.
It's the little lips underneath the window frame that actually direct water to fall down.
Right.
The current windows don't have sill.
On the other elevations, on the other sides of the house?
I think they do.
I think they all do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I want to get this clarified.
Yeah.
I think they all do.
I have pictures here. I'm looking at them.
I'm pulling too, yeah. And we may need to ask the applicant if it's not clear, but I'm sorry, is there a way to clarify it, or do we need to ask the applicant?
Sure. If there's a discrepancy on the plans in terms of the window sills, we can certainly condition the project to have the new window matching the existing window in terms of window sills and exterior treatments.
My 2 visits to the property indicated that all of the windows on all sides were consistent with each other, at least. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, other questions for staff from community members? Okay, seeing none, is the applicant or applicant's representative here? And would they like to make a few comments about the changes that have been made since the last time we had you here?
Applicant is here, but I don't have any comments.
Okay, thank you. If you would be available for questions, that would be helpful. Are there any questions from the committee for the applicants?
I do, Chair.
Yes.
I just want to make sure the applicant understand the question earlier from committee member McKay about the window sill. The plan doesn't show the sill, but if the sills are existing, they need to match that. So I just want to make sure the applicant understand that request.
Yep.
That possibly that will be a condition of approval.
Yep, we acknowledge that. We will revise the design, and I
We'll
think we
make sure
got
that
that.
it
Yeah.
matches. Yeah.
Do you match existing window?
Yes, that's existing. Right.
Thank you.
You would accept that as a condition of approval this evening?
Yep.
That the new windows would match the existing windows, including the presence of sills. That would match the existing ones. Okay, thank you. Other questions for the applicants?
Yes, Chair, I have a question.
Yeah.
So the proposed roof slope is 412, right? This is a question for the applicant. The slope of the proposed roof, the hip roof?
Technical knowledge to answer that. I'm sorry.
So you cannot confirm that?
Yes, we cannot.
Oh, but your plan says 412, if I'm looking at it, the correct plan. So also you would not know the slope of the current roof?
No, we don't.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I'm just going to ask if there's any chance that Ms. Choi or Mr. Cervantes know that information from the plans or from discussions with the designer or architect.
If I may try to help, if I'm looking at sheet A 1.0, at the bottom, the 05 and 04 detail, the existing slope shows 412, and then on the new proposed roof, it also stated that it's going to be 412. So if the plan is correct, then it is 412. At least it appears to be that that's being indicated with the existing and the proposed are the same.
Thank you for the help. Does that answer your question, Committee Member Chow?
Yes, thank you, if the plan is correct.
Right. Again, we could.
We'll have to assume it's correct, I guess.
Yeah, that's what they're signing off to.
Well, they would have to make it correct because when they reframe the whole roof, they will have to follow what's on the proposed plan. I think the applicant understands that, and at least the person who helps them draw the plan understands it.
I think that I just want to explain very quickly this, so I don't eat into the comment section. My question was trying to figure out, like, because they're proposing to increase the height of the structure, the roof, by I think almost 4 feet. So that's why I was wondering about the slopes.
The way I see it, the ridge line got moved back, and then so if they maintain the same 412 slope, it will continue on up. If you compare the two roof plans, in order to achieve the new roof plan, then yes, it will increase somewhat because they have to extend it to a higher ridge line in order to achieve that look. That's at least what it appears to me.
Okay, are there any other questions, or are there any questions for the applicant from committee members?
I have a question.
Yes.
How high is the ridgeline going to be after the roof is completed?
I'll jump in there to help.
Is that?
But currently it's 22 feet, 4 inches, 4 5/8 inches, and the new proposed is, so before it's 22 and 4. The newly proposed ridgeline would be 24 feet and 2 inches plus 3/8. So I think visually, if you look at the ridge line, one is definitely lower than the top of the chimney, the existing one, and the new one is pretty much the same height.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? I'm sorry, yeah, from committee members.
Hello. Please. Ooh.
Okay, I don't think we have any other questions for the applicant from committee members, so I will move on to public comments. Are there any members of the public here to speak for, against, or about the project? I don't see anybody, do you? Okay. All right. I think we don't have anybody, so I will now close the public hearing. And we will now move on to committee member discussion. Committee member Chen.
Yeah, I think it's a workable solution based on what they propose. I am a little disappointed that the designer is not here to answer the question for us. We are relying on his drawing or her drawing to be accurate, and I think we do need to hold the applicant to that, because they are relying on their designer's drawing to present to this committee, and we are acting on the accuracy of these drawings. So yes, the ridge line got to increase a couple of feet. Yes, we do need to match the window sill. And is it a workable solution? I think that will be the best solution that we've seen since the last one. So, but it is going to be quite costly for them to achieve this solution. And I'm sure the owner understands that. So, with that said, I think it's a workable solution. I can work with it. We just have to make sure that there is no surprises when they come back with the working drawing, that find out that, oh, by the way, we couldn't make it work. That's going to be my biggest concern. But that will go on to the building department to make sure that they would have to adhere to these design drawings as to the slope of the roof, the height, and the percentage. It's very hard for committee members to plan check it for them and make sure it's going to work. We can only rely on what's in the plan, and the plan appears to be working, but it's going to be as long as they're accurate, that we can rely on that. So I can support the project if these are accurate plans and the owner understand what they do.
Thank you. Committee member McKay.
Thank you. I will echo to some extent what committee member Cheng has stated. I could support this project tonight with a couple of conditions. I also am disappointed that the applicant's representative was not here, but given that the applicant was unable to answer some basic questions on the proposal as on the application as it pertains to the roof. So I would want a condition that the plans be affirmed, that we are approving it based on the plans, with one key exception, which is that the windows will need to be consistent with the windows on the rest of the home, and the applicant has conceded that that would require a revision of the design to account for that. So those would be two key conditions. With those conditions, I could approve it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee member Rick Chow.
Thank you, Chair. I think this overall project is good. It'll definitely helps to bring the living square footage, the construction, everything to code, because this was built without proper plans before, approved plans. So I think the second one, this one today, my only concern is I don't know if any other committee members will share this concern, is I question a little bit about the height of the new roof height. You know, especially when you look at the buildings next door, this building is just going to dwarf the building next door. This is already tall enough, and then now bringing this up to the height of the chimney, the top of the chimney. I think that's really mainly my question, my concern. But overall, like I said, I think this is a plan that will improve the existing home. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee Member Lakon?
Hi, thank you. I could support the project tonight with the addition of the windowsill being compatible with the existing sills in the front and the sides of the home. I am concerned about the height of the building relative to the neighbors, and I am not sure how that can be rectified because of the addition already being on the house that is not compliant or not to code. So I agree with the others who have said that this is a reasonable solution, and I think I could support it as is with the condition of the windowsill. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Wong? Vice Chair Wong, you seem to be frozen. Are you able to hear us? Or maybe we'll come back to Vice Chair Wong, and maybe he'll be back with us. Tony Chow?
Nothing much to add. I think with what's in front of us that I can see, it seems like an agreeable solution or update. But I also agree with my fellow committee members on the conditions and assuming the applicant will be, I guess, have a grasp and understanding of what we're asking, and with the two conditions in place, I'd support it.
Thank you. Vice Chair Wong, are you, I think maybe he is checking back in, so let's just give him a minute. But actually, since we're waiting for him to get back in, I just wanted to ask, just in advance of the committee member discussion, after the discussion, Committee Member McKay, you mentioned two conditions, but I understood that you were talking mainly about the windowsill being, that the condition be that the windowsills on new windows be matching the existing windows, including the presence of the sill. Was there a second condition that I missed, or was it related to the sill?
The second condition, and we can discuss if the propriety of it, but given that the applicant was unable to answer some fundamental questions pertaining to the roof, and that we are assuming that the plans or drawings that have been presented to us are going to be the actual plans and drawings for the roof, that it somehow be affirmed in the motion. That was suggesting.
Okay.
We're making some assumptions, and usually there's a representative who can give us that assurance.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
So my internet was not good. I just rejoined everybody.
Yes, thank you. Vice Chair Wong, we would love to hear your comments now.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think the committee mentioned most of the things I want to say. I also appreciate how the applicant really listened to our comments. I just want to see if anybody from our team or staff can help me confirm, is the proposed ridge height going to be higher than the chimney's height? Because if it is, I think there might be a building code violation issue.
I was wondering also about the safety of
yeah, so I think without knowing a definite answer, I'm concerned that conditioning it may be a little premature. I'm totally okay with the windowsill. From the absolute height of the ridge, because Rubio is actually sloping from north to south down, so a little variation of building heights may be okay. I mean, if we say make the ridge not symmetrical in the midpoint of the structure, then that could be a little more odd as well. Looking from the side would not be symmetrical. So the absolute height is not a concern, but the relative height with the chimney top is my safety concern. So unless somebody can tell me it is going to be lower than the chimney, I would believe it needs to be revised. Anything else looks okay. I'm happy the applicant get a new bedroom, and that's going to be all reflected in their property value. So even though the roof could be a little expensive, but I'm sure they'll get that as a smart investment down the road. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So as far as my comments, I think that this was a good solution. I also want to say to the applicants, thank you for listening to us. This is a very workable solution, as Committee Member Cheng put it. I think that's a very good way of saying it. Like, you were in a bad situation, to solve the problem. You solved it in the way that I granted was a little bit more expensive, but I think that we all have expressed that this will result in a much more attractive house that hopefully will add value and beauty to the house that you've recently purchased. So, I think we all agree that. I also am not thrilled that the ridgeline is going to increase that much. I think it is a problem, but I don't know. This is kind of a lesser of evil situation. I think that I don't have unless someone more creative than I am has a better solution. I think that this is a good solution, and I think that it's kind of solving a lot of problems while creating one of them, and that's maybe something that we have to live with that. But it did occur to me the same thing as Vice Chair Wong about the chimney, but I was a little timid to bring it up because I wasn't sure if that was something in the code or not. I also would like to know, and I also think it's a shame that we don't have the applicant's representative here to perhaps address that. But I would like to go. I know that we're in committee discussion, but I'm going to take us out of committee member discussion very briefly to ask Ms. Choi about this issue with the chimney height. Can you give us some clarification on that?
Of course. So based on the elevation that we have on hand, and the fact that the building code does require that the chimney exhaust needs to be 2 feet above the nearest roof element within the 10 feet distance, horizontal distance. When we look at this, the slope, the very high point of the ridge on the roof is more than 10 feet away from the top of the chimney. And it is more than 2 feet higher. So it's just based on looking at the elevation drawings that we have, not having any building code training at all or done structural plan check, I believe that the current proposed heights will clear the chimney height clearance requirement for the exhaust area. Now, I think if the committee is concerned as to what needs to happen if the applicant is not able to meet the chimney clearance requirement when this project goes into structural plan check, I think at that point, staff should be able to look at a roof design that would give us a lower slope that would provide them the ability to clear the chimney clearance. But of course, that will mean a very minimal change to the appearance of the building. Beyond that, the project will have to come back to this committee.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that. Since we're still, so I'm going to move it. Thank you, Ms. Choi. Since I'm going to move this back to committee member discussion, I will briefly ask if there's any members of the public here to speak for, against, or about the project, because I believe that technically we have to reopen public comment. Is there anyone here to speak for, against, or about the project? Okay, seeing none, I close the public comment hearing. We go back to committee member discussion. I'm okay with the fact that there could be a very minimal change, or else it would come back to us anyways. And I don't know if any other committee members have anything to add to that or discuss as far as that's concerned. Okay.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
I have one question.
Yeah.
So does that not need to be a condition about the roof line and the chimney in the code? Do we?
My understanding, based on what Ms. True said, that wouldn't need to be a condition because it's already going to be checked. And perhaps Ms. Choi will direct that particular issue to be checked based on what we've.
Okay.
But I'm just saying this. I'm not saying that you can't make it a condition or that nobody can make it a condition. If there's a suggestion to do so in a way that would be productive, I'm all for it. Committee member, do you have something?
I just want to make sure I was clear on the explanation.
Yeah.
Let me just help a little bit. The plan will have to go through plan check, meaning that when they put a building permit, it will be checked by the plan checker, and they will check this kind of condition. And if they check the horizontal distance, the 2 feet, if it does not meet, the designer will have to come up with a workable solution in order to get the building permit. And so they have to work it out. And so we don't need a condition on that particular thing. It will be checked. It is part of the building code. So it will be checked later.
Right. Okay. So as far as the, I can approve this as is with just the condition on the window. I'm just concluding my comments on that. And if anybody has anything else to say, is there anything else that any committee members would like to say before I ask for a motion? Okay. Seeing none, I will now ask for a motion.
I move to approve DRC case number 19-83 with the condition that all additional new windows might be consistent in material and treatment and design with existing windows of the property.
I'll second that.
Okay. Committee member McKay?
Yes.
Committee member Lakon?
Yes.
Committee member Chang?
Yes.
Vice Chair Wong?
Yes.
And Chair Badnich?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to design review case number DRC 20-19, 2174 Melville Drive. Could we please have the staff report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This item is a first and second story addition to an existing 2-story home. Additionally, the applicant is removing the existing detached 2-car garage. The new garage will be attached to the south end of the first level of the home. For this particular project, there are 2 parts to your review process. First is the environmental review, and this has to do with the potential historic significance of the home and the fact that the city consultant identified this particular property as a potential historic resource, as an individual resource, the building itself, and also as a potential contributor to a district. And this particular district is the Sherwood San Marino Avenue district. As a result of this listing on the city's comprehensive historic assessment list, which was done based on a drive-through and windshield survey, I should add. Staff has requested that the applicant submit an in-depth historic assessment report as part of the application, and that was provided to you as an attachment to your report. And I understand that both the architect and the author of the historic assessment report are here available if you have any questions. The conclusion of the report is that the home is not an eligible historic resource under National California Register, and additionally, it has no local historic significance, meaning that it is not eligible under the city's current landmark destination criteria. The report also found that the home is not a district contributor, and the reasons are stated in the report, and if you have questions, the report's author will be able to elaborate on those aspects of the report. And the second part of this review has to do with the design review aspect. Of course, we're still using the same 4 design review findings that are stated in your report. And these are no different than other projects that we have looked at in the past. So one, we look at the home's, the compatibility of home with itself, with the neighborhood, and we also look at privacy concern. And last, we look at the new material for its compatibility with the general neighborhood and with the home itself. Staff is able to make the compatibility finding for the addition project, finding that it is compatible with the style of the home. However, staff has concern about the privacy of the west neighbor, whom is also here and will be available to make comment about their concern as well. And for that reason, staff is recommending that one of the balcony on the second floor be reduced in depth in order to limit or mitigate that privacy concern from the west neighbor to some degree. And that concludes the staff report. And if you have any question, I am open for question.
Thank you. Are there any questions from committee members for Ms. Choi? Okay. Oh, yes. Wait, I think we had a question from committee member McKay.
I'm sorry, that was late. Thank you. Ms. Choi, have you had occasion to consider other applications where there has been a conflict between the citywide historic resources survey report and another report presented by the applicant as to the historic significance of the property under consideration?
For projects that have come before the DRC, this is actually the first instance where we are
Oh, Ms. Choi, you're
conflicting information.
Oh, sorry, Ms. Choi, at least I lost you for about 5 or 7 seconds. Would you just go back one sentence?
Sure.
Thank you. Uh-oh.
In response to Committee McKay's. Hello.
Okay, better.
Are we okay? Okay.
Yes, I think so. I think we're okay. Keep going.
Oh, sorry. In response to Committee McKay's questions, this is the first time that a project that has to come before the DRC where the applicant's historic consultant provided a report with conflicting information from the citywide survey. However, I should note that the citywide survey is a product of a preliminary review. The city's consultant did not have access to individual property. So the consultant was not able to gain access to interior of the home or the backyard or the side yard. The survey was done with visual observation, potentially from the driveway or the sidewalk. So for that reason, the consultant report provided by the applicant is in much more detail. And I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are there any other questions for Ms. Choi from committee members? Okay. Seeing none, we will now ask the applicant's representative if they would like to make some comments about the project.
Yes. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Alex Chen, project architect. And I was involved in this project more than a year ago to get to tonight's agenda. And so the project itself, if you look at the site plan, I'll go to share the screen. Here is the site.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to tell you that I don't think that you're sharing your screen, and I understand that you wish to share your screen.
Yes, I can see from my screen.
Is this something Mr. Cervantes has to allow? We
Yes,
do not see anything.
Ms. Choi, do you have to facilitate the sharing of the screen somehow?
Actually, Mr. Cervantes is the host of the meeting.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm looking to see if there's anything here that I don't think there's any restrictions.
Because on my computer tab, I see it clearly the screen sharing.
We're not seeing it. What you see is not what we're seeing.
Yeah, you have to click share screen at your end.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay, it's working now.
Yeah, we are seeing the folders now.
Okay, everyone can see it now?
We see your computer desktop.
The directories, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, now here's our site. As you can see, there's several large trees.
Sorry, we are not seeing any site plan. We're just seeing your computer screen showing A1, A2, A3.
You need to change your selection for what you're sharing.
One second, yeah. It's on my end, I can see it, the screen.
If you unshare, you should have a selection of things you can share, and if you click on the drawing, that should pull it up for everyone else.
We'll give you another half minute to try to pull that up.
You see it now?
No.
I think you might need to unshare your screen and then have the drawing already opened up and then go back to sharing your screen.
In essence, start over.
Yeah.
You see it now?
No.
We're seeing
You might want to check your Zoom preferences. You go into Zoom preferences, go into, you see settings, then click on share screen. There you will see what type of files will be shared. So Zoom preferences, settings, share screen, maybe you can see something there.
I'm going to suggest that we maybe move on.
Okay.
And just
yeah. Okay. I guess everyone has.
Unless you think that you're almost there. If you think that you're almost there,
Yeah, because on my end I see it very clearly all the drawing text on the drawing.
Alex, we do have the plan, so you don't have. You're going to be sharing the same thing we have. You need to share.
Yeah, we all have the plans.
Okay.
So you can.
Okay, I will just mention what page am I going to. Okay, please turn to page 1.0, which is the site plan. As you can see, the challenge of this project is dealing with the existing oak tree. The oak tree has a very large canopy, approximately 60 to 70 feet, and is shaped from north to the south sort of rectangular in size, not really a diameter of the tree. So what governed the addition part is really we wanted to avoid the oak tree canopy. So what governed the design is really to stay away from the canopy and heading towards the back. So in order to do so, we have to remove the existing two-car detached garage in order to add on toward the rear of the property. And also a reason that we have to do a two-car attached garage to the home is because the property owner has elderly parents that requires attached garages. Saying that, and we can go to, well, leave on this site plan for a minute. The design concept is this. Rather than taking away of the tree, we are incorporate the tree as part of the design. So everything that you see on the site plan involved with the tree, all the major rooms will have an opening or large window and French door looking at this courtyard. This is the concept to bring the outdoor space to the inside. And when you are inside, you feel like you under the large tree canopy. So then we can take it to page 2.1, please. And most of the interior will be pretty much remain, except the existing kitchen gets renovated, and the family room and the bedroom number 2 gets added on to the rear of the project. And as I mentioned, we have this, we wanted to bring indoor and outdoor space to the home. And there's a covered patio designed that outside of the family room, and the podium French door that can be easily swing open to enjoy the outdoor courtyard spaces. Please turn to page 2.2. The next page is the second floor. So the amount of the area we add on to the rear is approximately the 22 feet addition to the rear. And at the last part of the existing bedroom, according to the historic report, this is also an add-on to the existing home. So we want to follow this roof line by creating a very simple shape to continue the roof line so that when the project is complete, it looks original. As I mentioned, we want to enjoying the space under the tree canopy. So therefore, on the master suite, we have a balcony area just to have the property owner would be able to come out to enjoying the sitting, to enjoying the canopy of the space. I realized that the staff report mentioned about privacy issues, and by reducing from 7 feet to 4 feet, is actually people can still come out and to see the neighbors, but that is definitely is not our intention to do so. However, I spoke to the property owner representative before the meeting. Instead of finding the ways to resolve this issue, we are willing to relocate our balconies towards the rear of the property, which is to move from the west side to the south side. This way, the neighbor on the west side can be totally comfortable with this design. So it will be just the windows, and there will be no balcony facing west. Okay. Then we can turn to the next page, which is A4.1, the elevation of proposed the existing north elevation, as you clearly can see, because we know this is an important part of the history, this entire facade did not get changed at all. Okay, so this facade will be remain the way it is. The elevation on the east, pretty much the portico share, the front portion of the existing home stayed the same as far as the massing goes. And we wanted to step back each layer that we go towards the rear so that the building has a proper proportion and modulation as we go. And by doing this, so we even recess our garages 7.5 feet inward towards the west. So from the street, Melville, when you look in, you don't really see a long building. So this is the what we thought was appropriate. Instead of making a very long building, have a minimum setback along the side yard, we shift the garage into inland to avoid the street seeing the long building. And from the garage to the main house and second story, the elevation of the roof line that is breaking down to pieces, so it doesn't appear to be a very large roof. We go to the next page, A4.2. You please take a look at the south elevation. As I mentioned earlier, from the garage to the first floor finished and to the second floor, the roof line has a modulation, and it's well articulated, doesn't look like a one-piece large roof. And on the west elevation, we want to bring back some of the original feature from the rear porches. So in this case, in our elevation of the garage on the west side, we're introducing the arched recess so that the wall doesn't feel like very plain and blank. And all of the doors and windows will remain, that will be replaced by wood windows. And this will be top of the line will be Pella windows and doors, dual glaze, and will be wood with 3/4 divider lights to match the existing house. And all the eave, roof tile construction will be matched as well. And that will be pretty much I have to say about the project. And we also, tonight we have our historian from Cephals here to answer any of your questions about the history of this project. And we work with the Cephals, the entire design process to get through the appropriate proportion, massing, and the building material. And thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, is there an echo voice? Let me try to turn my volume down. Okay, that help?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So are there questions for the applicant from committee members?
Let me do try.
Yes.
The existing footage of the 2,000 square feet, does that include those patio cover patio area, or was it not part of it, the existing one? When you have I think your plan on A1 shows the footage, and I just want to make sure that the footage is accurate, the existing footage.
You're on mute, Alex.
We can't hear you.
Okay. To answer your question, Mr. Chen, is that the existing footage is taken from the indoor within the building shell, perimeter shell. Those were the livable areas counting the existing square footage. The existing patio is not part of, not counting towards the livable area.
I see. Okay.
I think it's a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I wasn't sure if committee members' hand is done or not. I think we're
I'm
having.
sorry, I want to stop for a second. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm hearing everyone echoing. Is everyone else hearing echoes?
Yeah, can we
Yeah.
Echoing as well.
all the mics if you're not, unless you're speaking?
Yeah.
Maybe that's
I'm going to be too.
Okay, we'll give that a try. All right. Okay, I guess we'll just have to kind of give it a try. So my question to Alex, the architect, is that if you address some landscaping question I have, did you consider putting some sort of privacy hedges along the west side? Because one thing I visited the job site, if you stand in the backyard, there is really no privacy to the west side. So that's the first question. I think you have something to say there. And then secondly is that can you address the proposal of those 3 trees to be removed?
Yes, to answer your question, Mr. Chow. This is going back email between the neighbor on the west and also on the south. They were email letter wrote back to the neighbor on the south end that the property owner will put up hedges all along the rear and also on the east and west side. This is what we plan to do.
What kind of hedge?
It's there were also a picture attached to the letter. I don't remember exactly, but it's evergreen hedges, approximately every 36 inches on center. They're coming as a 16-inch gallon spacing. I forgot the name, but it was in the email documentation with the neighbors in the rear, to the rear. To answer your second question, Commissioner Chow, is that the 2 large trees in the back, as you can see from the site plan, on the east property, during the arborist field investigation, this tree is very close to the property line, and our neighbor has the garage built on the property line. And there's also a picture showing that their foundation system already has showing cracked. So to go on further, the arborist suggests that we should stop at this issue because the tree is large, because anytime they might fall into our neighbor's roof, we want to avoid any legal issues at this time. Also, the tree in the middle of the rear yard, and this is actually also a dangerous tree, the tree is insignificant based on the report. But what happened is they have a very weak trunk and very large canopy. So the tree itself is not balanced in the way, so when you have a large wind or a storm, this could easily tilt over. And I believe the property owner also talked to the Edison They did not say we can, because it doesn't really bother the Edison, the power line or enforcement. They said you have to talk to the city and also hire a professional. So this is the answer that we got, that this tree should be removed to avoid any future incident happen.
No, referring to the olive tree, jacaranda.
Jacaranda, I believe, on the tree next to the east side.
Now, for the jacaranda, that's the one that the neighbor have had complaint, right? The outside neighbor.
That's on the west side. That's another story. Yeah, that we can get into it. I think property owner is also here, Mr. and Mrs. Chen. If I can say behalf of their words, if I said it incorrectly, please correct me. Based on the conversation that they talked to the west neighbor, because the tree is large and a lot of time the leaf go into their home, and they will really wanted to see if Mr. Chen can remove this tree. And obviously, mature trees like that, you cannot say we wanted to remove. We have to go through the regular process. And tree is, based on the report, it is healthy. And that's why we don't want to do anything about it. It's not because we don't want to. It's because there's a guidelines to follow. We cannot just remove the tree like that. But we are willing to work with our neighbors on the west, and hopefully they understand this is a city procedure that there's not much we can do about. Unless the commission feel that this is appropriate, then we will continue to work with our neighbor on the west side.
Thank you.
I just want to follow up on the question, Mr. Cheng, if you can clarify. In A1.0, there are 3 trees to be removed. In the southeast corner, behind the garage, is the olive.
Yes.
In the middle of the backyard is the jacaranda.
Yes.
What is the third one?
I think the jacaranda is the one between the garage and the west property line. That is the notice number 3, which is existing tree to be remained. That is the jacaranda.
You are bordering the neighbor in the east.
No, that is olive tree. We already talked about that.
Yes.
The jacaranda is the one facing next to the west.
No, Alex.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just try to get more clear. The one olive tree is next to the east neighbor's garage, just 1 feet,
Yes.
between 1 feet to the garage wall.
Yeah,
You can
I saw
see
the
the
photo.
report. The one was jacaranda, which is all the way to the backyard, close to the property line with a south side neighbor, which that tree is really, really dangerous. Since I think about 18 months ago, we talked to the city and if possible to remove that tree because it's really dangerous. The tree grow together with the power post. So all the power line with the tree, you can see everything together. You can now see where is the power line, where is the tree. And Edison came out, said, oh, it is dangerous, but that's not our job to tell you yes to remove the tree. Okay, they say you have to go back to the city. If the city say, okay, you can remove the tree. If the tree damaged the power post or power line, we can come out to fix it. That's the story. And also at the time, we trying to waiting the plan, and we only rent out the property for 10 months. The tenant afraid to move in because when you go to the backyard, you can see the jacaranda tree is tall, it's big on the top, and it's not straight. It's like a halfway down, or I don't know. It just looks weird. And later we hire the people come over to trim to smaller, so it looks more safe. But at the end, the report come out say, hey, the tree is still dangerous. If you have when they have a big wind or something happen, they might fall down.
What about the third tree on the site plan? There is a number 3.
The third tree is orange tree. It's a small orange tree between the building with the west neighbors. It's so tiny orange tree.
I think it showed east, but maybe
East?
it was wrong on the site plan.
Oh, okay.
That is
the
a
orange,
garage. Or
the
behind
orange
the garage.
tree is behind the garage.
Okay.
Behind the garage, close to the east neighbors. But that's orange tree. That's the tree.
Is that tree still there?
I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
I don't recall seeing that tree at the site. Is it still there? The orange tree?
What's the size? I think it's still there. Okay. I think it's still there, but it's not big. It's a tiny one. I remember it's behind the garage, close to east side neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
The tree is still there. It's probably about 10 feet tall, and it's right at the corner of the garage existing.
Okay. So it's not it's not huge tree, right? I didn't pay attention on that at all.
No, it's about 10 feet tall.
Yeah, it's not big tree.
Oh, but that's on the east side of the garage. You're saying, not?
No, it's behind the garage of the subject property, and close to east side property, the neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the southeast corner of the existing garage.
Southeastern corner, right?
I believe that tree was noted by the arborist.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just want to say, like, we've got many different people talking, and it's very important that we know who is speaking. I already know who Mr. Sheng is. He is the designer. Ms. Pan or Chen, I believe that you are the owner, and thank you for jumping in and clarifying what was not known by the designer about the landscaping. But now we have a third person speaking, and I'd just like to clarify who that is.
My name's Peng, and I'm the neighbor to the east.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so getting back to questions for the applicant, is the question that was asked, has that been completely answered or not quite?
My question was answered, and I would like to have a follow-up, if I may.
Yeah, of course.
I want to ask the applicant or the architect, is there a tree replacement plan in place?
Not at this time.
Thank you.
I think that typically in the city, when you fill in the application to remove the tree, at that time the staff will review how big the tree, how many of the tree with the equivalent sizes to be replaced on site.
Right.
If I may have a follow-up question?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. To Alex, so the marked orange, which is number 8, which is on the east property line behind the garage, that one is, from what I remember from the arborist report, does not need permission to be removed. Is that correct? Because it's under 15 feet, right?
That's correct. Yes, that's correct.
But the other two, of course, is a different story. They need to be, they need to have tree removal permits.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right. So, Mr. Chen, go back to the window schedule, A6. So you are proposing all windows and doors to be replaced by Pella.
Correct.
The casement window, the steel casement would not stay in the front.
Correct.
Was it Sierra Pacific, as noted in A6, that would be the brand to be used? You just mentioned Pella, so I want to be sure what the applicant intend to use. At least my A6 said Sierra Pacific.
Yeah. I believe originally we were using the aluminum clad window, and after the historic report came out, and I talked to the one of the staff working in the office, is that they don't suggest the aluminum clad because the house has a lot of history, and in order to do it properly, the addition, they recommend the wood window throughout. So that would be the wood window with the true divider light and so on will be going to this project. If the plans agree still at Sierra Pacific, I guess that is incorrectly. The only way what you can see is that on the window schedule called out, they should have a window manufacturer, the profile of a head jam and seal detail attached to the window schedule, whatever that is called out to be. That will be the window we're going to use.
Okay, so that will be Pella all wood window that is now being proposed.
Yes.
Because the window schedule did say aluminum clad. Okay.
I apologize.
Thank you.
Other questions for the applicant?
I have one more.
Yes.
The architect mentioned the need to have some sort of ADA access, and that's the reason of attaching the garage to the property structure. Has the architect or the designing team looked into other options as well? As in my view, the current structure is a very long and big structure. Or how that may work if it's a detached garage as it is now. Maybe a little bit pushed towards the back next to the neighbor's garage location.
Yeah, that will create a little bit uncomfortable issue for the future user, the property owner. Because think of this way, the elderly people during the rain day, they have to cross almost 40 feet to get to your rear door. That's a little uncomfortable and uneasy, especially for elderly people. In that process, 40 feet distance, it could cause a slip or whatever it happened, it just create more hazard. That's why our design, even though if you're looking at the overall distance, is longer than most of the home there, we tuck in additional 7.5 feet inward, which this is important space for the courtyard. We're willing to sacrifice the courtyard in order to get the access worked out. And also when the story pole is being completed, if you're standing from the street, you will hardly see anything that you see a single story building behind the main building there. So that's my answer to you, Mr. Wang.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant or applicant's representative? Yes, Committee Member McKay.
Thank you. Are we going to hear from Staffos Environmental, or did I not understand that correctly?
I'm here. Do you have questions?
Oh, I didn't know if you were making any kind of presentation.
I'm just here to answer questions, so if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Yeah.
Is this the appropriate time?
Yes, I believe so, because she is with the applicant, so part of the applicant's representatives. Sure, go ahead.
So my question is it really, what is the basis for thinking that there was an error in the architect's name here?
So, because the signature on the permit is very clearly says, what is it? I've got it open here. One name, and we couldn't find any information, but the other architect is actually well known. So here it is.
Garrett versus Gilbert Van Pelt.
Yeah, so Garrett is very well known, but Gilbert was actually, as shown in the report, it's very clearly says Gilbert. So Casey, who co-authored the report, she and I had a bit of an argument, and that was the consensus.
A bit of an argument?
Well, because she was like, but Garrett's well known. And I said, but it clearly says Gilbert. So we just
is there any evidence of a Gilbert existing?
That was part of the problem, was we couldn't find anything in the AIA historic directories.
And if it is Garrett Van Pelt Jr., who is a well-known architect, does that not have significance?
It's also not a good example of his body of work, but as shown in the report, the signature on the permit is clearly Gilbert. So perhaps the answer is to revise the report to take the conjecture out.
And how is it not, just in your understanding, how is it not the best example of his work?
We granted it's City of Los Angeles, sorry, my phone is ringing, City of Los Angeles has Historic Places LA, and you can search by architect name. So we did do some comparative analysis of other bodies or other examples of his work, granted different city, but it's a quick and easy way to see how it compares.
And again, how did it compare?
It was a lower style, less detailed, and just not as pretty, if you will.
Did you compare it with other examples of his work in San Marino or surrounding communities?
Well, Pasadena has the CRID, so it's possible to search by architect. The only way to search by architect without going through every permit for the city of San Marino is the Historical Society, and they don't necessarily provide reference citations.
What is the basis for understanding that there was a modification to the house such that the front was changed? What's the foundation for that, other than speculation?
That I just had pulled up. Let me find the photo again, and if I may share my screen, Marlon.
Thank you.
So when you look at the photos in the report, the back of the house actually appears to be more what you would expect for the primary facade for this style. And
You should be able to. There's no restriction.
okay. Except I'm not finding what I want to share. Oh, here it is. Can you see this picture?
Yes.
So typically for this style of architecture and for this period of construction, the primary facade would have faced the street. So if you see here, there are some details that appear to have been the original doorway, and this very distinctly looks like it would have been the primary entrance that was converted to a window, and it is uncommon for the primary entrance to be around on the side where the porte cochere is. And to me, this looks like these three arched windows were probably a sleeping porch. They've been infilled with aluminum windows, so this also appears to be an addition.
But is there a record? Is there
Not every alteration is permitted, so it's possible construction was completed without a permit.
But again, so there isn't. I mean, we're drawing inferences, but you don't have competent evidence that it was altered.
There is not public record that it was altered, but based on experience and typical examples for this style of architecture also found throughout the neighborhood, this is atypical for this kind of construction.
In the neighborhood, what examples?
I don't have specific addresses in front of me.
So in other than saying that it's not as pretty, which, you know, I thought beauty was in the eye of the beholder, but I mean, other than it's not as pretty as some of the other.
We did comparative analysis, and based on comparative analysis, his other works are far more ornate with much more detail than what is essentially a stucco box with a Juliet balcony and some alterations.
Are there any other questions, Committee Member McKay?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions from other committee members? I have a question. I don't think that you went into this. If you did, I may have missed it. But I just, you know, I did have questions about the design decision process that went into having something that's kind of in the middle of the house sticking up on as a second floor, kind of on stilts, if you will. And then I also had a question about the decision to add to a very kind of long kind of corridor type of shape, to add a garage to the end of that rather than have what's more typical in San Marino about the detached garage. I did hear your answer to Committee Member Wong about the garage, but it's kind of related to my question, which is what was going on in the decision making about kind of elevating the second floor and having nothing underneath it, because it's kind of a waste of square footage and it just adds to the lot. I understand the applicant's desire to add to the house, and I believe that this house can be added to. I'm wondering why you would add, why the design decision would be made to add it kind of elevated there. It seems awkward and not respecting the existing architecture at all, because you would never see that on this kind of a house, you know, historically, or not even historically. I don't mean that it has to match the existing home. I'm just saying that homes in San Marino don't typically have that kind of structure where there's an empty, I mean, it was described, I think someone described it as a covered porch, but it's not a covered porch. It's just nothing on the bottom and this thing on stilts, if you will, and there's a second floor, and that's just something you don't see in the you know, in terms of compatibility in the neighborhood. So I wanted to know, it seems to have been deliberate, and I'm just wondering what's the explanation for that.
Well, during our design process, as I mentioned, we wanted to bring the outdoor space in. And when you sit in the family room, you can really enjoy the oak tree in the canopy and shades and so forth in the garden. So, and to have the porch next to the family room, this will create like a lounge area or a table and chair. You'll be able to sit out there, even though when the door is closed, because this walkway is approximately 7 feet in width. This, because facing west, you will have, although the tree will protect the sun shading from the west side, also during the daytime, this also will be a deep roof on top of it. And that's why the balcony was being designed to support on these 4 columns underneath. That was the intent of it. Yeah. I'm not sure your question. If your question is why do we add on the second floor? Because if we add more square footage on the ground floor, this first will have a lot more coverage. We will have less yards area as of now, because the oak tree canopy taking majority of the courtyard in the middle. So we want to open up the courtyard spaces. That's why the master seemed to be logical location to add on behind the existing bedroom.
That is actually really my question, is like, it's already under, it's under the canopy, arguably even more. I mean, it's still very much underneath the tree canopy, so I don't really understand the massing being there. I mean, we're building the house around the tree canopy, but we're building under the canopy. This is what I'm seeing from the drawings.
Right.
And generally speaking, the design guidelines are not to build under tree canopies. That's why I'm having trouble with your presentation versus the facts that we have in the design, which is that we are building under the tree canopy.
Yeah, as I even walked back to the site once the storage pole is completed. I don't know how many of you actually walk in the back, but it clearly showed the roof line will be clearly way below the canopy, the line. So there's a good majority distance for tree to allow the tree to grow. And that was the original effect that we're trying to achieve, is the indoor and outdoor space there. Just the design approach, differently than your thoughts, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you. Committee member Lakon?
I have a question regarding the oak tree, and I believe that you stated that you would also be planting a hedge along the west fence, the chain link fence that's between the property to the west.
Yes.
That goes very close to the trunk of the oak tree. I mean, for the oak tree to stay healthy, you can't have, we don't want to plant in the under the canopy and have, I would assume, sprinkler a watering system for the hedge. So I think that planting privets would not work underneath the oak trees if you were trying to preserve the tree. I also have a question about when I was at the property, I noticed two very large branches had been removed from the oak tree. And the opening, the branches were maybe, this big, very large lower branches. And I don't know if that was done recently. They're kind of a tan color, and I don't know if that is something that was done with a permit, and if it's done in the best interest of the health of the tree. So can I ask you about that tree cutting that took place on the oak tree?
Yeah, I think the property owner, when the property changed hands, they filed a permit, and Mrs. Chen can describe to that.
Okay. Regarding the big oak tree in the backyard, and our family purchased the property almost about 2 years ago. And at the time, we ready to close up the escrow, but the fire insurance company, they do the inspection and say, hey, we cannot give you the fire insurance because the tree is too big and too close to the house. And that time when we talked to the listing agent, because the previous owner is the gentleman is passed away. So the listing agent, per listing agent information, the previous owner never trimmed the oak tree is probably about 20 years. Per the neighbor said, it might be over 20 years. They never ever touched the oak tree. So that's why the oak tree grow to everywhere. Okay, and we talked to the listing agent and the previous owner's family. I say, hey, we want to buy the house, but we cannot get insurance to cover the house. So we have to do something. So that time we hire a licensee barley tree company, and they came to the property and they talked to Ron, which is he still worked in San Marino 2 years ago. And then barley tree company talked to Ron, deal with them, and they are okay with a permit to trim some of the tree. But they said they cannot treat over 20 or 25% per year. So at the time in 2019, they trimmed one time. And 2020, they trimmed another time, which is the proposal came out is for 2 years trim, because they cannot do big job for the one time. They will damage the tree. So when you saw the cut, that's for 24 months. They did the cut. So I believe the tree is still much healthier than 2 years ago for right now. And we plan to do every year or every 2 years trim. That's even more healthy for the oak tree. And also you only can trim one time, which is between May to September for the oak tree trim. So yes, I believe this recently trimmed the tree as last year, August, I think. Last year, August. And the first time is 2019, July. I think July in 2019.
May I ask something about that? I'm just wondering about where were the branches hanging, the branches that were cut, where were they hanging? They were hanging near the house, over the house?
No. They were low branches. Very low branches, maybe my height, my eye height. I have 5'5".
Do you have an answer to the question, applicant, Ms. Pan or Ms. Chen?
The 2 times oak tree trim by barley tree, they have a licensee, and I believe they talked to the city, talked to Ron about that. So I'm not the person to do the work. And how they do the work, that's based on their professional knowledge.
Okay, but you commissioned the work, so you asked them to, where were the branches? Since this was such an issue for apparently insurance, where were these branches? Well, I guess I'm trying to understand if they were low-hanging branches. I also am having trouble because I have bought home insurance for several different properties, and no one's ever said, with large canopy trees, and nobody's ever even come to the property before insuring them, certainly not in the middle of escrow. I don't know. I've worked with several insurance companies, and none of them have ever asked that. So it seems a little unusual to me. And I'm just wondering about that process, since it was such a hazard. These branches were such a hazard, but they were low-hanging, relatively low branches.
Okay.
I'm just wondering. I'm just hoping you can give us some information to help us.
Okay. Well, I'm not the insurance company. I think I still can find the email from the insurance agent. They said, this house, the tree is too close to the house. We cannot cover the insurance. So that's why we forward the email to the listing agent. And the listing agent asked the previous owner's family, which is they now live in LA, they now live in California. So they are okay to find a licensee company to do the work to close the deal.
Okay, I understand.
I think I still have the email from the listing agent from the farmers insurance, which is in 2019. And also regarding this tree, I think our west side neighbor, they know much more information than us. Well, we are friendly, nicely talked to them a few times.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant or applicant's representative?
I just want to make one more remark here.
Yes.
In answering to Commissioner or committee member McKay's earlier question about the existing home, if you look at the existing home layout to the consultant, her thinking of possibly the window in the living room was possibly a door. I don't think that is a reasonable assumption. If you look at the existing floor plan of the original home, you're coming through from the entry into the foyer, and then you step down to the living room, and no architect would design a front door into the middle of the living room. That pretty much tells any people in the architecture profession would say that that is a window, not an existing door, and convert it to a window. So that's at least it's my best judgment on that. And to the area about the 3 arches on top, obviously that was a balcony before, and somewhere down the line somebody just wanted to enclose the balcony with the wrong type of window. For Alex at this time to go through such a major remodeling, with any respect to the existing architecture and the original architect, those are to be respected. And whatever that was done incorrectly should be corrected now. So I just want the consultant and the designer to understand that we're dealing with a piece of architecture that was built in the 20s. It does have some very significant architecture details that you don't just use the base and just do whatever you want and just expand it to the point that ignore what was done originally was correct, ignore what was done incorrect over the years, and just continue and say, well, I'm not changing the elevation, and just keep going. Maybe it's the right time to bring back some of the earlier days features that was there at one time. So that's just my comment on the earlier answer from the consultant. That's all.
Thank you for your feedback, and we will certainly take that into consideration.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Are there any other questions questions or comments for the applicant or applicant's representative? I think Committee Member Lakon, were you raising your hand?
Well, I was going to ask if the one part of the home that I did notice that they weren't addressing was the enclosed porch in the front of the house, and I thought of anything I would address restoring that if that's the case, from what it looks like to me, and as Commissioner Chang had noted, that would be addressed primarily first, and then my other comment is the home was sold in 2019, and when I went back to look at the home online, there are pictures from the listing that look like a 20s house. And I remember seeing those pictures. And then another time I went back and looked, and then I saw a different home that was the same home, but it had been listed maybe as a rental after it had been purchased. And in that new listing, the front door had been altered significantly. The door is no longer brown. The hardware was changed. What looks like an original exterior sconce was missing and been replaced with a new light fixture. There was a wrought iron bell that was on the right side of the door, which was had been taken off. What else did I notice? Those features were part of the beauty of that house. And I was surprised to see those characteristics, that character taken away from the house so soon. And I don't know if, especially that light fixture, if it exists anymore, if you know whereabouts to that light fixture. And I also noticed that the kitchen has already been remodeled. And that was done, I guess, without permits. So if you can maybe just address the state of the house now. I'm mostly concerned about the original door, entrance door, which I agree with Commissioner Chang that the original door was originally on the side under the porte-cochere, because there are homes in San Marino that have this layout. It's not typical, but there is a house that was built in 1924 on South Allen, 665 South Allen, which was designed by George Washington Smith. And it's a beautiful house. And in fact, it's very similar in the layout to this home. It's just much smaller in scale than the house on Allen, but it has the entrance on the side. You go under the porte-cochere and you enter the two-car garage with the pointed garage doors. And the entrance was to the side, and the living room and the dining room will both open up into a courtyard. And then the kitchen is to the back with the dining room. And I think that that house, as well as the Wall Sneff next door to it, I believe is a very similar floor plan as well. And this house has an interesting history because it was built by the Carver Investment Company. And I believe it was noted in that the Carvers were not a significant family in San Marino, which maybe most of you might disagree. The Carver Company, investment company, was Cale Carver and brother Chesney Carver. Cale Carver, everybody knows who that is. He owned the house on the corner of St. Albans and Monterey, that beautiful Marston Mayberry house that has the windmill on top, that has the burrow with the 3 kids on the back. His brother Chesney, who's on the permits to the house, Chesney built his house on South Oak Knoll at 2660, and that is the house designed by Carlton Winslow. So both of these brothers were noted for building fine homes in the city, and they both chose very prominent architects to do their own home. And before they moved to San Marino, they owned the commercial property, and they built what I believe is the first commercial building on the corner of, it's called the Carver Building. It's on the corner of Chelsea and Huntington Drive. And it's that beautiful Spanish building. That was their property up to Granada. And I believe it was in their family until the 60s. And that is a beautiful building that was designed by Carlton Winslow as well. So what my point is that these two knew how to choose architects. And in 1928, they built several homes in the city, and they did commission Garrett Van Pelt to build them. There's often typos in papers and on permits, and I have a listing of many of the homes. So I went through the building permits, and many of them do say Garrett Van Pelt as opposed to Gilbert. So I am convinced that those are Garrett Van Pelt homes, and I think that that is something that, as a committee, we should really take note. We have very valuable small homes on Berkeley that are designed by Wallace Neff, and they're in a cluster. And everybody knows the Wallace Neff tracks, and people love to live in those houses. They're very valuable, and they're beautiful small houses on small lots. There are the Bisner houses in the Mission District, which are very nice. And on Coniston Place, there are maybe 7 storybook homes that are smaller in scale, designed by the same architect. And these are different in that they are not all next to each other, but and they are different styles. But I think that with the prominence of the architect and the builder's family, that they should be taken into account when we decide how this property is to be addressed going forward. So, my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Or I don't know, Committee Member Lake, I'm just going back to you for a moment. Did you want to address anything that you just said with the applicants, since we are still in the questions or comments for the applicants stage?
No, I'm okay right now. I'm okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions or I guess comments that might lead to questions for the applicants or applicants' representatives from committee members? Okay, seeing none, we will now move on to public comments. I believe there may be some very patient members of the public here to speak for, against, or about this project. Mr. Cervantes or Ms. Choi, do you think that there are any members of the public here to speak?
I'm here. I'm the neighbor to the east, and I guess I had a few questions. I haven't actually seen the plans, so I'm not entirely sure how that will impact, our privacy. And are the plans available to be viewed, or?
You are the next door neighbor?
Yeah.
You should have received. I'll let Ms. Choi address this more, but just very briefly, you should have received at least a notice from the city saying that there are changes being planned for the house next door to you and to.
Yeah, and I thought that this design review committee meeting was the place where they would kind of present the plans, but that's not the case.
No, that's not the case. Decisions are being made today. Ms. Choi and Ms. Choi, could you just address the notification process in the city?
Sure. So to the east neighbor, part of the application process involved the property owner or the applicant speaking with the immediate neighbors. Those neighbors are what we call as the legal neighborhood. And being the immediate next door neighbors, you are part of the legal neighborhood. And it seems that the city did receive a common letter from you that you're not objecting to the project. So I imagine at that time, the applicant may have reached out to you and provided you with the template letter that you subsequently signed and returned to the applicant, which then were submitted to staff as part of the application.
Right, and that is correct. Someone did come to our house and I did sign off on it. And he did, he showed me one page of the plans, more the floor plan. He said that he was going to extend the back and move the garage. But I had thought that in this design review process that we would get some maybe renditions of what the house would look like. I have no idea what the side of the house looks like. All I saw was a floor plan for the first floor.
Okay. So the architect and the property owners are both on this meeting at the moment. So if the architect can coordinate with you at the end of the call with your contact information, and I think they will be more than happy to provide you with the information that you need in order to understand the project. Based on the comments that we received so far, I imagine the project, the overall design scheme will change before we come back to the next meeting.
Okay, and yeah, I guess the other concerns was the Yeah, I like to see what windows are facing or being added on the second floor facing, the east side. I have some concerns about, I think earlier in the meeting, there was a comment that there was going to be a balcony added to the south side, which would be, overlooking our swimming pool. And then I have I'm sure it will be addressed, but I'm just wondering what the plans are for once they remove the existing garage, what hedge or fence they intend to replace it with.
So that's a very good question and concerns, and I see that the architect was actually taking notes. So I imagine the architect will be reaching out to you after this meeting in redesigning his project so that there could be consensus and minimize the impact on your property.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question to the neighbor?
Yeah.
Okay.
To me?
Is the wall of the garage that they wanted to remove? Does the wall work as your fence, or so right now you use the wall?
Right,
it's facing your property. There's nothing in between.
Correct. That's our handball wall,
Okay. I have a property that does that also, so that's why I was asking. Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Hu, I'm not quite sure where we are. Are you done with your public comment, or would you like to say anything more before we move on?
No, I'm done with it.
Okay. Are there any members of the public here to speak for, against the project?
Yes, we are the neighbors to the west.
Yes.
And, my wife Patty, my name is Dennis, and basically we appreciate the neighbors, and the architect's changes to the balcony that was proposed originally, and it really will make a big difference as far as the privacy issues we were concerned about, and we welcome those changes very much, and we appreciate that.
And I do want to say something that Dr. Petruska told us. He was the neighbor who passed away 2 years ago. In his house, he's hosted Nobel Prize winners, and he did tell me the front arch windows were at, it was balcony before. So you guys were right on.
Thank you. If it's okay, I would like to just ask, I think it's Mr. Fitzgerald, when you said we appreciate the changes to the balcony, is that the suggested changes that staff is recommending, or I just want to understand which balcony you're concerned with, and what I'm trying to establish whether or not that change has already been made to the plans, or whether it is a planned change to be made later.
It's a plan change, the way you appreciate. It was mentioned by the architect tonight, and we welcome that.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't know about this change until tonight when we heard Mr. Alex Chen told us just now, 20 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we understood which balcony idea you were commenting on. Thank you very much. Any other members of the public here to speak for, against, or about the project?
Again, this is Penny on the west side.
Yes.
If planting hedges under the oak tree is not appropriate, at least we can request not to change the chain link fence, just to hang some wood planks on the chain link fence to provide more boundaries.
As well.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you. Is that all? Is that all from you?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other members of the public here to speak for, against, or about the project? Okay, so we will now close the public hearing and we will move on to committee member discussion. Vice Chair Wong.
Thank you. As I understand from the architect, there is a new idea of canceling the proposed balcony facing the west neighbor and move it somewhere to the south. But I don't believe we know where exactly it is, nor its design. So I believe that is something yet to be presented and be considered. When the design intention was to bring the outside in, that is really smart. And I know there's a big oak tree in the property. We all love oak trees, and I appreciate the teamwork around it. But I think there are many ways to bring the outside in, including find a way to enjoy one's backyard. Having an elongated structure with the end being the two-car garage, the property basically has no view of the backyard, except maybe a little bit from the second story, and that's it. So isn't that a waste? When we talk about senior members or ADA or whatever, there are ways to take care of that without an elongated structure. I keep using the word elongated because I care about the neighbors in the west and in the south quite a bit. As the building is very long, it could block sunshine day or evening, and also some sort of privacy.
Vice Chair Wong, we are having trouble. You kind of cut out in the last sentence.
The garage is next.
Vice Chair Wong, we can't hear you clearly anymore.
All right, so garage, it's not good. I don't know why. Is it okay now?
It's still cutting out a little bit.
Maybe we let somebody else do it.
Yes, if it's okay, we will maybe just wait. Go ahead and speak again. Let's see how you sound right now.
All right, and then the two-car garage, if it is not attached.
You sound fine now. If you could just back up a little, that would be great.
Okay, so bringing the outside in, there are many ways, including enjoying the backyard. And having an elongated structure would prohibit the residents from enjoying the backyard view, except someone is in the second floor bedroom, which you go to bed, literally. So it's a waste. And too long of a structure would block sunshine for neighbor in the south and in the west, and the view and privacy. So, and also it is maximizing land use to the extreme. I don't want to go through the math, but it is really down to the last 50 square feet, and it may not be necessary. There are many ways to have a very comfortable home, decent land use without really having cookie-cutter homes. So I hope that would be considered by the applicant and the design team and come back with a more reasonable plan next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee Member Chang.
Thank you. I have difficulty looking at a very charming existing house that was built in the 20s. In the 50s, they did some addition already. It was about 1,600 square feet plus or minus before. They added to approximately 2,000. I still do not see 2118 right now. I did some quick calculation. It doesn't add up to that. And now they want to push it to 3582. The net increase of the footage from the 2118 is about 69% increase in footage. The available lot coverage also went from 1957 square feet to 3222 square feet of lot coverage on a two-story building, and that went up 64% approximately. I think we just basically lost this entire home and in this character, in its proportion. If you look at having a attached garage running about 102 feet long, I think it's a mistake. That's with no respect to the existing home, and I think we need to go back to the drawing board and revisit the existing floor plan and try to come up with something better, because it's not working the way, in my mind. It's just pushing up to 18 square feet below the maximum on a home that was practically a smaller home in the beginning, in the 20s. I understand that they push it up to about 2,000 to 2,100, but push another 1,400 square feet of additional footage to an already remodeled home once. It's just an overkill on that particular building. We must consider a brand new building if we look at the footage the way it is now. And also, when you take out trees without a replacement plan and no landscape plan, really concerns me, because what Alex was saying, that when you take out a permit for removal, that's when you're not going through a remodeling and taking out trees. If you come into the city and want to remove a tree, yes, you go through that process. But when you come to the design review and or planning commission, it's a full development of this home, and we need to know what happened to the landscaping. And without a full landscaping, I think that arborist report, it just doesn't do us a lot of good. We know the condition of the existing trees, but what happened in the future? What is coming out, what's going back in is critical for us and for the neighbors to know. So I think that's something we need to address to the applicants when they come back next time. So the neighbors on both east or west side would understand what goes in and what comes out. It's very critical for the entire neighborhood. So that's all I have. Thank you. Did I lose somebody?
I'm sorry, I keep muting myself to try to help with the echoes and such, but excuse me. Thank you. Could we have a alternate committee member, Chimney Height?
I won't repeat most of what has already been said. I do think that the length of the property, especially with the garage, is kind of throwing a lot of us off. I think in rethinking or revisiting the design, maybe have a better, I guess, thesis behind that. I mean, I think it's just, as it's elongated, and understanding that the elderly individual needs to walk, preferably in a covered space. Even that walkway through that family room and into the kitchen areas, it's relatively narrow, and it doesn't seem very easy to navigate, even as it is. So I'm not sure if it's the master bedroom or the courtyard space or the garage that's really the anchor of that piece that we're building around. But maybe that's something that is kind of on my mind, and I'm scratching my head trying to figure out. Thank you.
I did it again. Sorry. Alternate committee member Rick Chow.
Thank you, Chair. I think this project, obviously, hearing all the questions plus my own read, I think it's just really way too aggressive. You go to the backyard, you look at the story post, you just try to wrap your head around it. You go like, what, really? In the backyard, really, I think the applicants should be really. I think the applicants are very lucky to have great neighbors. I would especially give kudos to the west, to the neighbor to the west. I think they are just sweet neighbors, and then really. They're not picky. They support the project. In the meantime, I think the project you go there, the sheer massing is just too much. And I wanted, so, Vice Chair Wong covered a lot of ground. I fully support that. Committee Member Chan said everything, and same thing, I support that. I just want to touch up on a couple of things. Tree trimming. The owner talked a lot about tree trimming wires. I think living in San Marino, that's kind of the things you have to deal with. You can't just say that, well, the trees are going into the branches, going to the wires, we're just going to chop the tree down. I think we all deal with that. I mean, personally, we trim trees every year. The Edison company comes to our backyard, trim the tall maple every year. That just has to be done. I mean, we never thought twice about it. We're never going to just take the saw and take the tree down. So with that in mind, for example, the numbers, tree number 6, it's a little bit top heavy. Well, talk to the arborist. Just trim it down a little bit. So it's not a hazard. So that's just one suggestion I can think of. And there are many other things like the balcony, the way the courtyard is constructed. Great idea to have a courtyard, but the courtyard is facing your west neighbor. That gives him no privacy. And then the structure goes back and back and back. It's just humongous. So, but I just want to circle back a little bit very quick. Like in our the review today, there are 2 parts of it. The first part, so far we really haven't talked about it much, is the historic preservation. I think committee members asked many good questions, especially I think committee member Marquet earlier asked some very pointed questions. And my take on this, and I really appreciate that. My take on this is I think the historic preservation report is adequate. I'm fine with it. There are many nuances, many details that have been altered over the years, and I think the report pointed out basically, also according to the staff report, from what we understand, is the San Marino's historic resource survey is kind of preliminary. So this property has the potential of being on the historic resources list. But I think personally, I think the SAPO group provided enough detailed report in actually reading this. So I think that part I'm fine with it. But I think the architect Alex, I've seen him coming in front of the committee. I think he's very experienced. He always wants to do the best project for the city, for the applicant. But so I think in the next round presentation, I have high hopes that the applicant, the architect can put a much better appropriate proposal in back to the historic preservation, trying to keep or restore as much details, history as possible for this property. Thank you.
I did it again. I usually don't mute myself. Committee member Laycom, please.
I ended up giving a lot of comments earlier, but the first part of this was to approve or to accept or reject the historic significance, the report done by the how do you pronounce your company's name? Saparos, the evaluation of historic significance. And I find it to be needing more detail and clarifying the significance of the Carver family in the city and the development of the city, and the Garrett Van Pelt as the architect, which I believe he was. So I think that I would not be able to accept the fact that it is not eligible for not so much even what is it? What's the word that I'm trying to find? That the home alone isn't significant, but that it's not part of the makeup of a contributing structure to the neighborhood, which that's my biggest argument is against. I do think it is a contributing building, and I don't think, and I think that the assessment done doesn't convince me that it is not. So I can't accept the historic assessment report as it is. As far as the home itself, the massing is my biggest objection. It's very large. I get the feeling that it's being added onto just to fit as much space under the roof line as possible. There's a lot of extra rooms that don't seem that necessary, that could probably be eliminated. As we point out in the design guidelines, the economies of scale that removing hallways or extra rooms to make the house less massive, I think would be better for the neighbors, especially. Privacy is an issue for both your neighbors, and yes, they're being very, very nice. And I have to say, I was very surprised that the neighbors hadn't seen all your plans. That is what we understand to have occurred every time somebody shows with the check. The check on the packet actually indicates that you saw the plans and discussed them and that you approved the plans. And I am very alarmed that both neighbors who checked off on the plans don't actually know what the plans are to the extent that they are. So the next time this plan comes before us, I hope that all of the plans, full disclosure, are addressed with the neighbors. And I hope that they show up again so that we have full confidence in that. I think that both neighbors will be very surprised by the largeness of this new property and the amount of time it will take living next to it. So I think that they need to know exactly what's going to be asked of them as neighbors. So I would appreciate that as good neighborliness. One part of the project that I want to address is the removal of the garage. I find the garage to be in a location appropriate for the home. It is compatible with the street and the other homes in the neighborhood, and it's compatible with the house that was built in the 1920s. On its own, it has that nice design feature that makes it unique and interesting and adds to the architecture of the house and to the entire street. So I think that's very specific to that house, and I'd like to see that, that to remain. Also, removing the garage is going to open up a whole new can of worms with the neighbor's property that needs to be addressed before any kind of plan. I would be able to approve any kind of plan. Also, removing the garage is going to provide a very large area to the west of this long property that will be able to be covered in concrete. And that would have to be addressed, what is going to be happening between the house on the side and the house itself, because that amount of concrete could be very devastating to the next door neighbor. Heat, echoing all sorts of issues that you don't really understand are going to happen until it happens to the house next door to you. And then you have to live with it because once it's approved, it's approved. So I think that I would have to have all that worked out. The balconies, both balconies, the proposed addition onto the south side would be a privacy problem. The one on the right, facing the west, is going to be enormously problematic with privacy. So I wouldn't be able to support any balconies for the property at all. I could support opening up the front porch because that wouldn't impact anyone's privacy. Let me make sure I didn't forget anything. There was a gate that was proposed, which I think that would be nicer without a gate. Those typically don't have gates. If there was going to be a gate, it should be more designed in the style of the home. You also want to make sure that that gate would fit any garbage trucks or any of the situation that you're going to have to deal with actually living there. And then I want to address the tree replacement. I believe Commissioner Chang brought that up, not having a tree replacement plan already. The neighbors to the south asked about privacy and views, and the replacement from the applicant representative, who is not the owner, Mr. Jack Wu, who says he's not the owner. He's working for Via Home Incorporated. Are you familiar with the company Via Home? Jack Wu is not here tonight. Via Home, that is also your company, correct? Right. Okay.
No.
So no, it's okay. So this letter was sent to the neighbors, and this project manager was stating that the owner appreciates the trees, and they're moving the trees due to issues. But my concern was the replacement. I find not acceptable to address the privacy and the view issues. Because when you plant a privet hedge, although they provide privacy for maybe properties when you're driving by, or mostly on the front or on the side of your property, but when you plant them all along the back, the gardeners need to get up and keep them trimmed. They don't really get that high. And I don't think that is the kind of privacy that they're thinking about. 6 feet when there's a slope in the back of the property. So I don't think we're going to get any kind of privacy concerns addressed with privet hedge. It's going to be a lot of maintenance, they're nice, but the gardeners aren't going to want to let them get too tall, because then they can't trim them. It also is, when you remove those trees, you're going to see lots of wires. All the neighbors are going to see all those wires, and it's going to be very unattractive to many of the homes, including whoever potentially lives in this house someday. So I think that the jacaranda and trees like that have very lacy canopies are trees that provide just kind of camouflage for all of that stuff that nobody really wants to see. So I think that considering trees that have a lacy canopy gives you the park-like feel that people in San Marino would like to have on all their properties. In a perfect world, we would all like that park-like feel. And when you have a property that's deep, you have an opportunity to maintain that look and to provide the camouflage for the power lines and the electrical lines. So I think that a tree that, the jacaranda tree, maybe the arborist can, I don't know if you've ever hired them to put in fertilizers and treat the tree and have it planned for it to bring it back to its health. Sometimes that's all it takes. So I would need a different plan for the back. What else? I think I had some other issues about the roof line, but I think that 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 won't really need to be addressed tonight, because I think we're not going to be continuing the house the way it is at the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee Member McKay.
Thank you. I agree with all of my fellow committee members. I'm not going to repeat a lot of what has been said. I would just simply say to the applicant, you have a very lovely, charming home. And I was on the property, twice. It is a beautiful home. And one of the city's assets that we must protect, one of the city's most precious, significant, distinctive assets is its architecture. And I'm not comfortable with the Staffos environmental report. I feel that the conclusions they drew were based on drawing some inferences which I disagree with, and I think that my questions earlier went to those inferences. I don't believe there's foundation for many of them. I do think this structure is individually significant from a noted architect, and so for those reasons, at most I could support a denial. At most I could support a continuance. I could support a denial tonight. I am concerned about the neighbors on both sides, but I'm also concerned about the neighbors on the south on Adair. And we didn't hear from that neighbor tonight, but there was an objection that was submitted. And I've never seen a property with that elongated structure. I just haven't seen that in our city. I agree with Committee Member Lacon that it really raises some questions on what's going to be going on both sides of it, and I think that the placement of the current garage is exactly right. So, I think that what that elongated design creates is massing, which is it's not consistent with our design review guidelines. It's not consistent with the city's design guidelines. So for all of those reasons, I could at most support a continuance tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Normally I would try to be to just say that I agree 100% with all of the committee members has said, but since this has some since there are new issues that are coming up for us for the first time in terms of a report that a historical assessment report that some committee members are questioning. I think that that's kind of the first time that we've dealt with this, and I think I'm just going to go into a little bit of detail. What just struck me as I started to think about this is that I haven't heard one committee member or alternate committee member say one thing positive about this. And I'm not saying that to be a jerk or to be brutal, but I don't know if I've really ever seen an item on the agenda where no one had anything positive to say. I'm going to try to do that by saying, I think that this house could be added to. I don't think that it is impossible to add something to this house massing. As far as the historical aspect, I'll start with that. I found the report interesting. I found much of it very convincing, but I also got the sense that that there were some things missing, and some conclusions also come to which were not entirely convincing to me. I didn't finish the report saying, yeah, this is definitely not contributing, and this definitely isn't eligible, because I just didn't find the evidence overwhelmingly compelling, and I felt that there was a lot missing. I think that I want to thank Committee Member Lacon for doing, I guess, some other work and noting that having looked at other permits, that some Van Pelts were mistakenly, or perhaps it was a nickname or something, who knows, but that this really may have been Gilbert and not Garrett. There seems to be a lot of question about that, but I tried to look at this beyond. So I want to say that I also don't accept the conclusions entirely of the historical assessment that was commissioned by the applicants. Moving on from that, though, I do want to say that really at that point, I think we just look at our residential design guidelines. We don't say, it is not, to me, this project and the conclusions that I came to when examining this project were not hinging on its historical significance or lack thereof. It did give me a little bit of like it gave some dimension to what I was looking at and some context to what I was looking at that was helpful. So thank you for providing that. But so as I was taking notes from my fellow committee members, we have massing concerns for sure. Everybody has mentioned that the additional massing is just over the top and seems to kind of disrespect the property, the topography, the development of the neighborhood in terms of the placement of massing and the placements of the garages and such. We have the massing issues are really significant, and this elongated shape is not just, it's not respecting any of the existing architecture or any architecture in San Marino, really. I would say even it disrespects the architecture, the existing architecture of the home. And I know that I'm being very blunt, and but I am repeating what my fellow committee members have said, and I'm making conclusions out of their comments. So we have massing concerns that are very significant. We have privacy concerns that are very significant. We've got balconies, we've got even the porch that's looking onto a neighbor. We have problems with, where are the hedges and how are they, we also have, in connection with privacy concerns, we seem to have neighborhood notice concerns too, or just concerns that the neighbors may or may not fully have understanding of the process and have expressed some desire to know more. So we have neighbor concerns, we have privacy concerns, we have massing concerns, we have lack of respect for the historic and the potential historic and definitely architectural significance of this home as many homes in San Marino. We have landscaping concerns. Edison comes out and clears branches from the electrical lines. This is what I've known from my whole life living in San Marino. They come every year, they trim branches that are near lines. They don't tell anybody to remove trees. They don't tell anybody that this is very dangerous and we have to organize getting, this is just, the Edison argument is just not, it's not appropriate and it's not relevant. If the applicants did get permission to remove a tree, then they got permission to remove a tree, but this has nothing to do with Edison. So we don't have a tree replacement plan. We have a lot of trees missing. We have buildings being constructed under drip lines, as far as I can tell. So we have a lot of concerns. Every checkbox that we have to look at in terms of compatibility, in terms of massing, in terms of privacy, all of those checkboxes are not met. And I don't believe that any of our committee members have felt that any of them were really met. So what I'm getting at is that I don't see this as something that can be massaged down. I don't see this as something that, it's going to be more than 4 meetings for this to get improved. If we are not going to deny this, I don't know what we would deny then. We don't have evidence that the residential design guidelines of our city were considered in any meaningful way. We have a proposal that doesn't meet any of the things that we want to see that shows some good intention or some interest in following the residential design guidelines. So for that reason, I don't believe that this is something that we should, as a committee, be continuing. That is my opinion. So I would like to first ask if there's any further discussion that we should be having or that we need to have as a committee before I ask for a motion, or would anybody like to comment on other people's comments? This is for committee members. Okay, so with that, I would like to, I'm just going to go ahead and make a motion. My motion would be to deny design review case number 20-19-2174 Melville Drive.
Second.
Okay, could we have a roll call, please?
Committee Member McKay?
Yes.
Committee Member Lakon?
Yes.
Committee Member Chang?
Yes.
Vice Chair Wong?
We can't hear you, Vice Chair Wong.
Yes.
And Chair Badnich?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Are there any members of the public here patiently waiting for open forum? Because I see some people here who have not commented or. No? Okay. Well, okay, thank you. Well, with that, I will end the March 17th, 2021 Design Review Committee meeting and thank all of you for all of your hard work, as always. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will adjourn until March, I'm sorry, what's the date of our next meeting?
It'll be, let me see, April
7th.
April 7th. So we will adjourn until April 7th. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.